Good day, brethren. This is the good captain from Captain's Custom Works here again with another one of my beer reviews. Today we're going to talk about something that we kind of mentioned a little bit in the last episode, and that's IPAs. We have this one here. This is Skull Wrapper IPA, and this is from the Coronado Brewing Company, and this is out of Coronado, California, amusingly enough. Not just a clever name. I recently had, from the good folks at Coronado Brewing Company, I had this Blue Bridge Coffee Stout. This was pretty good. Had it with some fish and chips. It did the trick. Now, we were discussing in the last episode how IPAs are incredibly popular recently. I don't know if it's the brewing industry that's driving the desire for IPAs, or if beer consumers are asking brewers to make more of them. You know, I'm sure it's probably a little bit of both. A little bit of chicken and the egg situation going on there, but IPAs are certainly popular recently, and there's a lot of breweries doing a lot of really interesting and, you know, sometimes just unusual things with them recently. This is a pretty straightforward IPA, though. And they mention in here the hops that they use, which is nice. That's the most important feature of an IPA. For those of you that don't know, let me give you a little bit of education. IPA stands for India Pale Ale, as you probably see on the labels of some of them as you browse around in your beer department. India Pale Ale is so named because it was meant to be shipped to the British colonies in India and needed a beer that could stand up to the journey, and that is why IPAs are so bursting with hops, because the hops actually acts as a natural preservative, and thus the beer would withstand, you know, months of journey in the cargo hold of a ship and still be drinkable by the time it got to British troops stationed in India, or, you know, the rest of the British expatriates living in India, because that was a very popular thing. And, you know, who can blame them? A lot of neat stuff in India. So, this one they mentioned that this is made with Citra, which they describe as pithiness. I'm not sure if that's a terminology I would use, but Citra, Simcoe, they point out the evergreen character, which is good. A lot of you will notice that in a lot of your hoppier beers. And the high alpha bitterness, they say, of nugget hops. Nugget hops is a very popular hops, and it's one that you'll see frequently even if you're looking around your garden centers for hops to plant in your own hops row, which I encourage some of you to experiment with. Or at least in our area, you know, nugget seems to have a lot of popularity. Now, another thing that they say, though, and this I kind of took a little bit of issue with, it says it creates a well-rounded hop bomb. Sounds good. It says that it needn't It needn't rely on boosted octane or any other form of imperialization, they say. I take it by boosted octane that they mean the alcohol content, and that is one way in which this IPA differs from a lot of IPAs. This is only 7.0 ABV on this beer. That's not real stern for an IPA. One of the things that IPAs are more well known for is the fact that they're a little sterner than a lot of other beers, and that goes with that same thing. You know, the preservative qualities of the hops and the high alcohol content make a stern beer that can stand up to long storage times. And so this one's a little unusual in that. Only a 7%. I mean, it's not weak by any means. It's just not what one is used to seeing from a lot of the IPAs. So do a little pour on this. Using my trusty pint glass again, because they did not specify another kind. I find it interesting when beers say, enjoy in a such and such glass. It's like, alright, I'll give it a shot, but I love my pint glass. There's a lot of head on this one as well. So was the last one. I wonder what's up with that. I know we've got them nice and chilled, so that's not the issue. It seems to be settling a little bit, but a lot of head. Not too much fizziness, but a little bit. Nice and pale. It's what you want in IPA. It's got color. It's not water, but it's very transparent. Not like a lot of the, you know, unfiltered brews or something like that you'll see. This is very transparent. I can see right through that. I can see you. I don't know if you can see me, but I can see you guys right through that. Don't think on that one too much, because you'll never know how. But looks pretty good. Smells nice. It's got that nice hoppy bouquet that is really what you want in an IPA. So we're gonna start drinking this down. Regardless of the heavy head, it's settling, but it's a foamy one. It's got good plantiness, which is what I enjoy in an IPA. Pretty bold flavor. I think you can tell it's not that stern of an alcohol content, though. I mean, it tastes like it isn't. It's not a bad thing. Alcohol content in beers is very much a personal preference thing, and I mean, some folks love to drink NA beer. I mean, I personally don't, because I feel like that's I don't have a reason to. Basically, there's not a lot of people making non-alcoholic beers that really grab my fancy. They mostly seem to be marketed as, well, you want a beer but you can't drink, so have this. That's not my taste, so I stay away from those. As I've said before, you know, I'm able to drink responsibly, and that's a very important thing. Don't remember if we covered that in the last video, but we probably should in everyone. If you can't drink responsibly, you ought to not drink. That's just the way it is. If you can't control yourself around ice cream, it's an issue I have. Be wary of the ice cream. So, you know, I'm not just trying to beat down on people and drinking. It's anything, you know, moderation is key in life. But that's, you know, for a not very strong beer, it is flavorful though, so that's good. Some people like to substitute alcohol content for flavor, and that's not really what I like to see in a beer either. So it's not all about who can make the strongest beer in the world. It's definitely not the case. That being said, there's some amazingly strong, beautifully flavored beers out there, so, you know, the spectrum is there. But this is pretty good. It's got good flavor. It's, you know, I can taste the hops, I really can. The hop flavor is there, but on the other hand, it doesn't beat you in the face like a lot of IPAs can, and some of those who do are very good tasting. This one doesn't. This is a lot milder than I might have expected. It smells more flavorful than it tastes. It's got a decent mouth feel. It doesn't taste too heavy. I could easily see this being an IPA that could be enjoyed by a lot of people that might not be big IPA fans. I like variety in my beer. I like to try new beers all the time if I can. I definitely, though, I meet some people that, you know, some people are like, I only drink IPAs. Well, you know, if that's your taste, then go for it. Some people are like, I hate IPAs, I'll never try them. It's like, well, alright, if that's your taste, that's fine too, but I also think you're limiting yourself by saying there's anything that, you know, I don't like this. From my own personal experience, I'm not real fond of Belgians beer. You know, folks from Belgium are, you know, good on you. Poirot is a buddy. Most of you will not get that, because I'm weird, but I love Poirot. But Belgian ales, not really my taste generally. But on the other hand, I've found a few Belgians that have absolutely wowed me. So I will not limit myself by choosing to never taste them. And, you know, I certainly won't tell people how they should taste their beer, but I kind of feel like if you're blocking out an entire segment of beer, you never know what you're not gonna try then. So that's not the way I choose to do it. I think the skull wrapper label that might put a lot of folks off that actually might enjoy this beer, I'm afraid to say. I definitely think this could be an IPA that would be enjoyed more by a crowd that might think they don't like IPAs. I think this could have more mass appeal, and I think that, this is so scary kind of label might, that might not be doing them a great service in that regard. I think the flavor is pretty darn good. Like I said, it's surprising that the alcohol content is a little lower than one typically expects out of an IPA, but they managed to preserve the flavor. And it's not as flavorful as some, but it's definitely not bad. We're going to spare you most of the details here and go to one of my favorite things, the accelerated motion. And you get to laugh at how silly I probably look whilst I drink an entire 22 of beer. If we could break this down a second here, I'd like to take a moment to point out that I kind of mispoured that one a little bit. I really splashed the heck out of it, which is not my intention. So much more of a head on that glass than I meant to have. But oh well, we'll let you get back to your funny dancing about with whatever musical score I end up putting to this thing, and speed her back up again. Alright, let's slow it back down to regular speed here and discuss this a little bit. I don't like to be down on any particular beer too much because, as I've said before, the enjoyment of beer is very much a personal taste sort of a thing. However, I will say, especially with the lower than usual for an IPA alcohol content that this beer seems to exhibit, I really find this beer to be more filling than I'd like out of an IPA. Not that IPAs are necessarily, light in body quite so much. You expect something a little heavier than, just your standard, bar draft on an IPA, but this beer is a lot more filling than I would have anticipated. It really is. And I'm drinking it, without food, which is not. It depends on your situation. I'm the kind of person I enjoy having a beer with my meal. That's how I would really kind of prefer to have a beer. I'm not so much a sit around and just drink some beer kind of person, which is a funny thing that this series of reviews is kind of making me recognize and work around that, I'm filming these and saying, I'm just sitting down and drinking a beer. This is unusual for me. This is not how I do it. If I were drinking this beer with a meal, I might find myself saying, I don't know if I can finish that beer. Toward the end of this, this isn't quite done. We're going to pour off the rest of it here. But, getting toward the end of that second glass, I was really going, geez, I don't know how much more of this I can fit. This is a filling beer. I didn't even expect that so much. That wasn't really a point that I had figured I was going to have to address here, but this is very filling. The last one that we did, the Tighthead Scarlet Fire, that was a little more filling than, than I generally go for. This one is even more filling than that, and it's really not what I'd look for in an IPA, that quality alone. The flavor is not bad, it's a decent flavor. You get the hoppiness, that's what you drink IPAs for. You try to pick out those different tones. It's kind of like wines. I think IPAs equate to wine a lot in that regard, as in you're looking for the different flavor qualities. Like this said, evergreen and this and that. Yeah, that's why you drink IPAs. You're tasting the ingredients that comprise the beer. And although IPAs tend to have several varieties of hops, like this one does, but something else I could equate it to, other than wine, is if you're a fan of whiskey, as I am, it's kind of like the camera just died. My apologies for that, brethren. The batteries just went out on the camera. I'm doing well. The thing I was in the middle of saying was I was for some reason trying to compare this beer to whiskey, and I'm not going to be able to recover from having to get up and change the camera batteries. When you're talking what seems like the most interesting point in the world, and the light just shuts off, and you have to say, dang it, it's not working, is it? So, getting back to the discussion I was trying to have, IPAs can be compared to single malt whiskey, which seems ridiculous now that I've had a minute to think about it. But what I was trying to get at was that when you drink a fine whiskey, you're trying to taste the quality of the grain. An IPA is similar to that, except opposite, almost. You're not worried about the grain anymore. It's not like a porter or a stout or, something that has that bold, heavy quality, it tastes like a loaf of bread. An IPA is actually focusing on the hops that creates that flavor. It's that floral, planty, green, vegetative quality that an IPA has. Those are the hops. That's what you're tasting, and that's what it should focus on. So that being said, and to try to recover from my horrible camera mishap, thanks anyway for listening to this failed beer review. Lordy begordy, I swear sometimes. So the overall take from this beer, it's an okay beer. I think this would be a good, this is a gateway. This is a gateway IPA, is what this is. I think that people that, go to their neighborhood bar and, order the sale bar draft could probably drink this and not be as shocked in the palate as some of the much more bold IPAs would do. Maybe unfortunately, for the purposes of reviewing, I'm more at a point where I can take those bold IPA. I can drink something that makes me feel like someone just squeezed a plant stem into my mouth, or my wonderful, lovely, patient, and tolerant wife who makes juices out of the craziest vegetation imaginable. And I love you. She makes these things to drink that, to me, I'm like, it tastes like plant. It's the flavor of plant. You know, that's what they taste like, and I think that's what a lot of IPAs taste like to a lot of people that don't have the experience of tasting many of them and comparing their differences. But I've already tasted many of them. I've already compared most of their differences, and you know, what is this hops compared to this hops and that hops. And this, like I said at the start, these are not that out there, I guess, of a hops. Citra is maybe a little, you don't see that as much, but like the name, you're expecting the sourness. It's got that citrusy quality. Simcoe is fairly common. Nugget is fairly common. It's nothing that's real, like, this is the taste of, you know, such and such Idaho, where this wasn't from Idaho, this is from California. But I'm making the example of the what we'd call the terroir, you know, where a beer comes from. There's nothing that's really like, this is, you know, this is Coronado, California, because this is where this beer comes from. It's just kind of a general IPA, and it's not bad, and I think it would be better suited to people who weren't really in the depth of tasting IPAs already. I am, so it doesn't excite me as much. I think if I was a such and such light drinker, I should censor that for the video because that would make it funny, but I probably won't because that would render my explanation of it silly. But if I drank your standard, bar draft on a regular basis, and somebody handed me this and said, "There's better beer out there," I might say, well, this is really interesting. I think this would be a good introduction, a good gateway to the IPAs that are out there. But as someone who's drank a lot of IPAs already, it's not real exciting. It seems more like, okay, yeah, this is, it's an IPA. Doesn't feel like they got it wrong. There's just nothing that just grabs me and says, you're going to want more of this. In fact, if anything, and I hate to say it, no disrespect, Coronado Brewing Company, but if anything, I feel like the body is a little heavier than I'd want from an IPA, which made it difficult to get through an entire 22 when I was drinking it flat out. Maybe if I was sitting down with a meal like I typically do, drinking this beer, and I nursed it over an entire evening, yeah, it'd be warm by the time I was done, but maybe I wouldn't notice that quality quite so much. When I sit down here, pour the beer, try to drink it, little heavier than I would prefer from an IPA. I'm trying desperately not to end the video before the beer is gone. I am failing. My apologies. But thank you all so much for watching my beer reviews, tolerating all the crazy stuff I do, and all the crazy videos I make, and the crazy art and music. And if you know me from elsewhere, besides these here YouTubes, then you probably know that what you folks on the YouTubes have seen is nothing but the very, very tip of the iceberg. Just the tip. Compared to what I do in day-to-day life. So thank you for, at least watching Some of you have subscribed, some of you have made some comments. I appreciate the heck out of all of it. Please continue to do so. This entire series, particularly this series, is about a sharing of ideas. Beer is an individual taste experience, and I'm happy to be able to share my views with you guys, and I'd love to hear you guys, especially if you've tasted the same beers that I'm reviewing. By all means, please add your comments, even if you completely disagree with what I feel that I've come across in my tasting. You know, if you want to say, that's not what I thought it was this way, do it, man. That's what we're here for. We're here to share knowledge and try to help other people say, okay, well maybe this is something, maybe this sparks my curiosity. You know, if we can at the very least get one person to stop going, what's the cheapest thing you got here, and start saying, well, what feels like maybe I'd enjoy drinking, then we're doing a good job. That's what we're supposed to do. That's the beer. A little heavier than I'd like. Flavor okay. Overall, decent. Alright, thank you very much. We're going to see you all real soon, whether you like it or not. So, thanks again for staying with me, and we'll speak to you in the very near future. Much love.